Hello, welcome to my channel. This is my box of delight. It was made for me by my very good friend and Nerding for Fun Pops, and it's based off the TV series of the same name, which was released in the 80s. Even though I love this pop, I still fancy a go at making my own. Except rather than make it out of wood, I'm going to make it out of PVC board, as this is a material I've got a lot of experience working with. And in the end, I'm going to try and make it look like an old wooden box. I already had the dimensions at hand, but I'm going to make this a little bit smaller for practical reasons. Mostly, I can get more material out of my sheets if I reduce it by a little bit. So I've started by cutting down some 10mm board. This is quite thick stuff, and this will serve for both the top and bottom of the box. For all the other parts, especially the middle, I'm going to use 5mm board. Normally when making boxes, you're supposed to make angled edges, but since I can't do that, I'm going to make them square. I'm going to try and hide the cut. Right now I'm cutting down the walls for the box, and as you can see I've marked out on the base where they need to go, and I'm going to use PVC cement to stick these together, as it acts more like a weld than a glue, and by using my 123 box I can ensure that I have a perfect right angle. I'll leave it about 60 seconds before I move on to the next one, and then carry on until it's completed. You may sometimes notice in the background a second box. This is because I'm also making one for a friend of mine, who also just happens to be a big fan of the book and the TV series. Next, I have to make sure all the edges are perfectly level, and I use some sandpaper for this, as well as a sanding stick. And while I'm at it, I also need to round down the edges of the base. You can use power tools to speed up this process, but I'm more than happy doing all this by hand, as it will add to the aesthetic. Next, I cut out and glue on the trim to the top of the box. I do this upside down in the hopes of keeping it flat. As it happens, it ended up slightly out of alignment, so I use some modelling putty to fill in the gaps and level it out. Then it's just a matter of sanding it smooth. This might take a couple of passes before it truly blends in. Next, I can soften the edges to the lip, as well as rounding off those corners. I find it much easier doing it this way once the piece is already attached to the box. There are 3 ridges to go on each side, so I'll glue those into place one side at a time. This glue takes about 30 seconds to set, so I'll have a little bit of a work time. This allows me to add some spacers and make sure they perfectly line up, but the spacers must be carefully removed before the glue has a chance to set. And I do the same all the way around the sides, except for the front, which is a little bit different, as that's where the switch will go. So I'll cut the ridges to length and sanding a curve to one side. Then it's just a matter of gluing them into place and leaving a gap for the switch. And they go on like so. And now it's just a matter of going over the whole thing with a sanding stick and adding a curve to every edge. Because after all, this box is supposed to be ancient. In my box of spares, I found this acrylic dowel, and this will be used as a switch. But first I need to glue the box to the base, and these 123 boxes are ideal for making sure everything is square, as well as adding weight to the project until the glue can set. So if you make a lot of your own project from scratch, I recommend getting yourself some of these blocks. So once those have set, I dig out my Dremel and start making some holes, starting off with the one for the switch itself. It's just a matter of trying to make it look neat and symmetrical. For the switch itself, I've ground away the end pieces. This is so it'll fit in the slot but won't go all the way through. Because acrylic is quite rigid, I need to drill in pilot hole before adding a screw. So at the back I've added a screw via a little plastic plate, and this will allow it to slide left and right but it won't fall out. And now it's time to start working on the lid. I need to add a curve all along the edges, and on the inside I need to add a raised square. And while I have the Dremel out, I drill a hole dead centre of the box. This will be a pilot hole for a screw, which will fasten to the knob on top of the box. The Dremel also makes quick work of rounding off the edges, and that's fine-tuned further with a sanding stick. I've already measured out the strip for the square, they just need gluing into place. I managed to find these small brass hinges. I just need to line them up and see if they'll fit, which they do, and they should complete the look nicely. For the next step I drilled out the pilot holes. and screwed in the screws. From there I could draw around the hinges, then take the screws out again. I have to carefully cut out a groove a couple of millimetres thick. If I don't do this, the lid will not close. And speaking of lids, I screwed in the screw from the pilot hole which I drilled earlier, and this allowed me to attach the little knob on top. I also filled the hole with milliput, and this gave the screw something extra to grab hold of. I also filled in some other gaps and made them neat and tidy. And now's a good time to test fit the light. This is a Magical box after all. Since this box is supposed to be made out of wood, I need to add some wood grain. So I gave everything a once over with this coarse wire brush, and by only moving in one direction it should be able to imitate the wood grain. And next I need to add some colour. I have some sample bottles of wood stain which I want to try out. I covered all the surface areas with this and kept the brush running in one direction, and whilst it gave the appearance of wood, it was just too light. So I dug out the chocolate brown model paint and went over it again. And now the colour is much more true to the screen used prop. I also went over the top of the box with a dark green, and this is supposed to look old and patchy. And then for the final colour, I painted the knob on top in a maroon. Also, to help sell the ancient feel, I'm going to put on some gold, and I'm going to apply this in such a way that it looks like most of it has worn off. So I start off by adding some of it to the very edges with a cotton bud. Then I use a thick brush to help add traces everywhere else. Because these are not real wooden boxes, the underside paint needs protecting. So I cut out a couple of foam squares slightly smaller than the diameter of the boxes, and I'm just using all-purpose glue for this, as this has a very slow set time, so there are plenty of chances to get it lined up. Now, as mentioned before, I'm making two boxes, one to keep for myself and one to give away to a friend who's also a big fan of the book and the TV series. But she's not expecting it, so it should be a nice surprise. So here's the original one made out of wood, and this was made for me by Nerding for Fun Props. And now here's the two new ones. I have made them slightly smaller for practical reasons, but I do like to believe that I pulled off the wood effect quite effectively. So you slide the switch to the left to go swift, and to the right to go small, and you twist it to open it up. I'm quite impressed with this little light that I found. Not only does it fit perfectly in the box, but it's operated by a movement sensor, so it creates the illusion that there is a spark of magic inside this old box. Here's a 360 of the completed box. I think I've pulled off the old and wooden look, although it should actually come with a disclaimer, as the only delights it includes come with your own imagination. Just remember one very important thing: the wolves are running. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if I can do it, so can you.